Thank you, everybody. We want to welcome you here to Twin Towers Middle School on the campus of the Middletown City School District. My name is Ed Estrada. I'm a former board member of the Citizens Foundation of Orange County, and currently on the committee that helped put together this candidates forum this evening. On behalf of the school district, we'd like to welcome you here to Middletown. This is the third candidates forum that we've held in Middletown, the first one here at Twin Towers. This building was built in the 1930s, and as you can see, it's a beautiful auditorium for this particular setting. This evening, we'd also like to thank what we call our Vertex, which is our technical staff here at the high school, led by Victor Araki, and most of them are students who help with camera work, the sound, and the lighting, so they can get some real-life experience. So I challenge you, each of you this evening as spectators, to show our students who are here what proper decorum and civility is at a real candidates debate. So I want to applaud you guys for being active citizens this evening as we choose our next county executive. So, a couple of housekeeping issues. At this time, if you could please turn off your cell phones. Don't put them on vibrate, turn them off, because even on vibrate, they interfere with the sound system. We want to make sure that the candidates are able to communicate their ideas to you as good as possible. In addition, please note where the exits are located in each corner of the gymnasium. In case of an emergency, please adhere to the instructions of the school and security personnel. We also want to thank Mayor Joe DeStefano and the City of Middletown Police Department and Sheriff Du Bois and the Orange County Sheriffs for providing some security this evening. Thank you. We also ask this evening that there be no signs inside the auditorium. That's for campaigns or any other issue. We want this to be the candidates expressing their ideas to you, whether you agree with them or not. It's an informational session for you guys. So at this time, if you can all please rise and remove your hats, as I introduce to you the Middletown Naval Junior ROTC with the presentation of colors. Chamber Singers under the direction of Mr. Gregory Bennett.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the
leave the stage.
Hey! Forward! Color! Forward! March!
Everybody can sit now, right, Ed? Yeah? Good evening, everybody. My name is Nancy Proyact. I'm president of the Orange County Citizens Foundation. I'd like to add my gratitude to the Middletown School District for hosting tonight, Mayor Joe DiStefano, and Sheriff Carl Du Bois for providing emergency services. The Citizens Foundation is a nonpartisan, membership-based organization dedicated to improving quality of life in Orange County. We've been doing these debates, as Ed said, for several years now, as well as other nonpartisan educational events to ensure our residents are well informed and have a nonpartisan, safe platform in which to ask questions and offer new solutions to our county's most pressing problems. I'd like to thank our candidates for participating this evening. The Board of Trustees and the members of the Citizens Foundation believe it's vital to hear directly from our candidates what their vision and priorities are for Orange County before we, as voters, can make an informed decision on Election Day. We're pleased they both agreed and joined us for what we know will be a good discussion of the issues. Our committee, we have a committee that puts this event together, includes Maureen Hallahan from the Orange County Partnership, Andrea Nylon and Ed Estrada from the Citizens Foundation, Lynn Sion from the Orange County Chamber of Commerce, Carolyn Osborne from Leadership Orange, Jim DeLawn from the Orange County Land Trust, and Dawn Ansbro from the Orange County Arts Council. Each of us developed questions based on those we felt were most important to the quality of life of our residents, including the economy, job training, economic development, government efficiency, leadership, health and well-being, arts and culture, and other topics of concern that we'll hear tonight. The format for tonight's event is to have our moderator ask those questions rather than taking questions from the audience. We believe that our committee has covered most topics of interest, and for those of you that have questions that don't get asked tonight, I'm sure both candidates are doing meet and greets and other events where you can ask them your specific question. Or even check out the Times Herald Record's website and Facebook page. I know they conducted a debate earlier today for their editorial board where a lot of good issues came up. So while it was a tough job to choose our question and organize tonight's event, the toughest job tonight, and I apologize to the candidates ahead of time, but the toughest job is for our moderator, Professor Larry Force. We're so pleased to welcome Larry back to the debate stage. Professor Force is a gerontologist and has worked in the field of aging and disabilities for over 30 years as an administrator, clinician, and educator. Dr. Force is a professor of psychology and the director of the Center on Aging and Policy at Mount St. Mary College. He moderated our last congressional debate, and he was phenomenal, so we asked him back. He'll explain the rules and timings for the event. Dr. Force will also introduce our candidates and explain exactly the details of tonight's format. We're live streaming tonight's debate on Facebook, and it'll be available on our Facebook page, on the Orange County Citizens Foundation, on the Leadership Orange Facebook page, and also on YouTube tomorrow. I'd like to thank Spencer Daniels Agency and EC Media Group for help with all of that technical stuff that I just mentioned. At the completion of our questions, Dr. Force will close the debate, so my parting words to all of you are to remember to vote on November 7th, and be sure to get informed about all the candidates on the ballot and all the ballot initiatives you'll be asked to vote upon, including the Constitutional Convention. If you're interested in more information on that, please visit our YouTube channel as well. We held a forum last month on that. Once again, thanks to all of you for attending tonight's debate, to the Middletown School District and all parties involved in arranging this event, and especially to my board and board chair, Justin Ryder, for getting us through some bumpy roads along the way. I hope you enjoy the evening. Larry?
Well, good evening, and welcome to this wonderful opportunity to have a free exchange of ideas. My name is Larry Force, and I will be the moderator this evening. We had the opportunity prior to asking the candidates to join us to speak with them in the back. And one of the things that we talked about, and I was able to deliver, is my perspective of the role of a moderator. It's really threefold. It's to help enhance the dignity for the candidates, help enhance the dignity for the audience, and help enhance my own dignity. And that being said, the rules have been reviewed and agreed upon by both candidates. There will be an opening statement, 2 minutes per candidate. There will be a 90-second response for each with a 30-second rebuttal. At the meeting that we had in the back, a coin was tossed, and Patrick Davis will be speaking first. What I'd like to do at this point is I would like to introduce and ask Patrick Davis to join us, and I'd like to ask Steve Newhouse to join us, and if we could welcome them, please.
How we doing, guys?
So each candidate has the opportunity for an opening statement, which will be timed for 2 minutes. At this point, I would like to ask Patrick Davis to provide us with an opening statement.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I'd like to thank our hosts. Wonderful national anthem sung by the choir earlier, very touching. This has been and continues to be an amazing journey. As I've gotten across the county and connected with voters, residents, and neighbors, I've heard the same things over and over. People love Orange County for what it is, but are concerned about a complete and utter lack of vision and strategic leadership, which leaves us vulnerable and subject to the whims of external factors. Instead of pursuing growth just for the sake of growth, we need to be focused on making progress. Progress is a result of leadership confronting the challenges of our times head-on, rather than seeking short-term gains or only taking the most politically advantageous positions. Progress is a government made up of elected officials that are clearly acting in the best interests of everyone in the county. Progress means creating an Orange County that invites our children and their grandchildren back home when they complete their education, where they can earn a decent pay, afford the rent, send their own kids to good public schools, and not worry that the opioid epidemic is going to tear their family apart. I'm here to bring West Point values of duty, honor, country to Orange County government. I'm also bringing business acumen and innovative leadership from the Wharton School and real-world experience working with some of the world's biggest firms. When I was fighting alongside Marines in Ramadi and Fallujah, I was fighting for the flag and for our country, not a particular political party. I'm running for office because in today's political environment, with our democracy hanging in the balance, people of Orange County deserve a choice. Let's talk about making progress.
Thank you. Thank you. I would thank you. I would like to make a statement here, and that is the response and the applause of the audience. Please feel free during the opening statement, which was just done, to be able to recognize and acknowledge. The same thing you'll do for the next candidate. But as we get into the questions, because there are 18 questions, the expectation is that there will be no response or applause as we're working our way through the questions. So what I'd like to do at this point is I would like to ask Steve Newhouse to present an opening statement.
I will just say one thing, Doctor. Before this started, we did the national anthem, and I asked why we didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance. And every day in this school, the Pledge of Allegiance starts the day for every student. So if you want to take the 2 minutes from my time away, but I think, Pat, I think you'd agree with me, we should all stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance before we start this
Keep
debate.
your time.
Pat, you want to lead us now?
No, you,
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
thank you. The timer will be reset, and the 2-minute opening will begin now.
I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here. You know, nothing makes me more comforting and welcoming than having the Middletown NROTC bring in the colors. I want to thank all the organizers who put this on, all the guests that are in the audience. My wife and our 4-month-old baby are front and center. So, my kids at home are supposed to be watching cartoons or in bed, but I think they're watching this too, unless the babysitter thought it was going to get too rough. And I know my parents are watching as well. So also with me in the audience is my partners in Orange County government, my team, Dave Hoovler, the DA, the clerk, Annie Rabbit, the sheriff, who's not running this year, but it kind of feels like he is, and Bill DeProspo, our court candidate, as well as many other people running that I've been working with the last 4 years as county executive. It's been an honor to be the county executive over close to 4 years. When I came in here, we had a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulties. Our budget wasn't balanced. Our bond rating was plummeting. It was record high unemployment. The government center was closed. A number of things, park programs like the Heritage Trail have been stalled for decades. Our sewer plant had no direction. There was an international airport called Stewart, but truly the only thing international about it was the military and cargo going out of there. There was a number of items that need to be done. I'm proud to say, under my administration, with my team, we've been able to reverse those. Our bond rating is stabilized. The economy is growing. We have thousands and thousands of jobs. You see the men and women in this audience, they're back to work today. We have a government center that we're literally moving back into right now that we can be proud of, to centralize our county government. We paved 3 miles of Heritage Trail heading towards Harriman, and I know my buddy Joe DiStefano from Middletown is anxious to see us now moving to the next section, heading north into Walk Hill, through Middletown and into Walk Hill. Many, many things have happened under my watch. I'm proud of them, and I hope that you give me the consideration to stay as your county executive.
Thank you. All right, at this point, we will transition into the questions. The format will be a 90-second response for each with a 30-second rebuttal. The first domain deals with the issue of leadership. So who has had a major impact on your leadership style and why? Patrick.
So that's a great question, and I'm not going to name a specific individual, but as many of you know, I'm a graduate of West Point. I don't hide that, obviously. But I'm so proud to be from West Point because every time I go on campus there, I'm literally following in the footsteps of men and women who were so much greater than any of us. Folks that led our nation in our nation's wars courageously, with courage, with integrity, and to be from that institution, to be even remotely associated with what type of leadership development you received there is an absolute honor. The graduates of West Point have made an impact on society, not just in the military, but also in the civilian sector. And I'm very proud to be carrying on that tradition based on what I learned there, again, about service, integrity, honesty, respect. And I'm very proud to be running for office in the footsteps of folks from West Point who've done the same.
Thank you. Steve, a 30-second rebuttal.
I wouldn't say rebuttal, but my biggest inspiration is leadership. I've had experiences in government as well as in the private sector and in the military, but I'd have to say my father. My father and my mother are both first-generation immigrants. They came here with a shirt on their back. My dad was able to push himself and get through college and then end up going to dental school. He served during the Vietnam War in the Air Force, and he's taught me how to treat people with respect. He's a small business owner. He's somebody that I always respected, and I couldn't be more proud to call him the leader that I look up to.
Thank you. Continuing with the theme of leadership, while communication gets easier and clearer every day with the evolution of social media, the quality of the information seems to get cloudier. How do you make sure you get quality communication and information? Steve.
You have to go to the source. So when you look at what we do in Orange County government, whether we're talking about union contracts or budgets, that is coming directly from our government and put on the county website. When you look at all these other things on the World Wide Web, when people are trying to figure out what information is, I think they need to check the source. So when you look at Orange County and look at some of the agencies we work with, the state comptroller's office, are many things that we have for emergency management on how to be safe in emergencies, on how to be safe in an active shooter situation. We've done a great job with our social media to really filter through all the miscommunication that you see out there and really present the public with the facts, what they need to know, what's out there. And I think that Orange County has really been applauded for what we've done. We've had a lot of other counties around the state ask us how we do it. We're in the process of right now even updating our website even more to make it even more accessible to people. You can go on the website right now and find out exactly how much taxes your neighbor pays. You can find out if somebody's tax exempt. You can find out what the parcels are, what the information on it. So I really applaud my coworkers in county government that help update that and keep it state of the art. And I think that's the best way we can serve the public and give them the facts and clear up all the miscommunication that you see out there on the World Wide Web.
90 and 90? Okay. Patrick.
Thank you. Social media, clearly the latest trend over the past decade. I think it's a double-edged sword. There are good things about staying connected with friends and communities and getting information, but there's a lot of negative effects on our society that social media brings. It contributes to our children. We have cyberbullying. We have mental health stigma that's perpetuated, I believe, by what you see on social media. And it contributes to social anxiety and some of the things that we see driving the opioid epidemic in our country.
Thank you. All right, as we move forward, the format will be that each of you will have 90 seconds to respond for each, with 30-second rebuttals. So the second domain deals with the issue of government and immigration. What is your view on municipal home rule in light of the governor's recent shared services consolidation legislation? And would you or would you not encourage local municipalities to take advantage of the legislation, and why? Patrick.
This is a perfect example of where I'm not sure where Steve's priorities sit. As you stated, the New York State governor came down and required of the county executives of all counties in New York State to submit a shared services plan with the goal of saving taxpayer dollars. Saving taxpayer dollars, okay? Our county executive elected not to participate in that this year. We have neighboring counties who have saved millions of dollars. And over in Dutchess County, the county executive, Molinaro, submitted a plan saving $27 million over the first couple of years of this initiative. If Steve's priority is not doing what he can to reduce the tax burden that we're all facing by coming to the table, working with the municipality on shared service agreements, then I don't understand where his priorities are.
Steve?
This is a great example of where my opponent has no idea what he's talking about. Not only did Orange County work with our local municipal leaders,
Excuse me.
we worked with our local mayors and supervisors, Democrat and Republican, and we did put together a plan. We filed one, but we wanted to keep the door open, so we had another year to continue to work on savings. And we've addressed a number of them, and we're seeing real savings in Orange County government now. We're working with towns to take over some of their services to save them money. So if he would have showed up at one meeting with the supervisors and mayors in Orange County, never been one, last night was the last one, a perfect example. There's Democrats or Republicans. You would see our leaders across this county talking every month and sometimes more. They even have breakout meetings talking about how they can save and work together to accomplish and overcome some of the challenges they have. So I'm proud of what we've done in Orange County, and when he takes a shot at our shared services plan, he's taking a shot at every local supervisor and mayor that signed on to the one that we already filed.
Excuse me, we'd ask for no applause. Patrick, response, rebuttal?
The only thing everyone has to do is go home, Google it, look at the documentation about the lack of the shared services plan that was submitted, okay? It wasn't my job to be there working with the municipalities to come to agreement on what type of shared services plan we're putting out there. It was yours.
It's your job to know that we did one.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't my job. There is no plan.
We said we didn't have one.
It's
We
well
have one.
documented. You sent a representative to the a meeting with the governor to represent you because you didn't have a plan.
We have a plan. We filed one.
Excuse me 1 second. Steve, it's your turn now for rebuttal.
Okay. Well, look, at the end of the day, going back to what I said earlier, we did file a plan, and you can talk to Joe DeStefano's here in the audience. I see Tony Cardone from Monroe. There's a number of elected officials that worked on the draft plan that we have to keep it open, and I think as a candidate for county executive, you need to know if this is happening or not. And if you're making these blinded accusations that it never happened, it's filed, it's on, we kept the door open so we have a good one that's more effective and we can get more money back to our county to save money. That's it.
Thank you. Continuing with government and immigration as the theme. Recent budgetary constraints encourage retirement of long-standing county employees. How do you propose to revitalize the county workforce to offset the loss of all that institutional knowledge? Steve.
Look, the early retirement incentive is one of the key things that helps save the county's financial status. We had a lot of people leave without having to fire them, and we were able to bring them in with a new, younger workforce at a lower rate, and that were also contributing towards some of their benefits. So at the end of the day, we've been able to fill in with there's a lot of talent out there in Orange County, and we've been able to fill it with a lot of good people, and I've been very proud of what we've done. The job market is very strong in our community, but at the end of the day, we've been able to find people, and we're continuing to hire people. This is our 4th salvo of employees that have left. Certain fields are getting filled, some of them aren't. So when we looked at that early retirement incentive, we don't necessarily have to fill every job back. We're also cross-training people and having them go to different departments. So at the end of the day, it hasn't been a headache to fill those jobs. Sometimes we have to look a little harder, but at the end of the day, we've been finding some good talent here in Orange County that want to work and be part of our team.
Thank you. Patrick.
So on the topic of county workforce revitalization, I do want to mention the fact that the early retirement incentive that was put on the table was an idea of Roseanne Sullivan, a Democratic county legislator. Excuse me. The approach of letting folks retire early, I think, is fine for a cost savings plan, but we really need to make sure in priority areas that we have succession plans and that there's a transition that happens. A perfect example of this is when the Commissioner for Parks and Recreation retired last year or early January this year. We have not had a Commissioner of Parks and Recreation since January of 2017. If this isn't a statement of where Steve's priority is and just, again, a lack of leadership as the county executive, the CEO of the county government, staffing people where there are priorities. After the Parks and Recreation Commissioner retired, this has fallen under the DPW Commissioner. When that vacancy was created, when V-Rock left, Steve managed to hire a replacement, I think was somehow related to him or in his wedding, within days, and I believe there's a transition in place. It's just a misalignment of priorities. We need to do more to make sure that there's succession and we're running an effective organization.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'd ask that please that there be no applause.
This is another, can I go?
Please, 30-second rebuttal.
This is another example where he has no idea what he's talking about because the early retirement incentive was started by Steve Gross, the Human Resources Commissioner for the county. And I know a lot of people are campaigning on it now. It'd be good to just say you supported it, not say that you created it. The other thing, at the end of the day, Park and Recreation, we were able to pave in Harriman and get the Heritage Trail paved because we had the leadership of Park and Rec under Public Works temporarily for the last year, which a lot of the projects left for Park and Rec. dealt a lot with public works, and the expertise of a PE, a professional engineer, helped get those done. So I think things have been running great, and we're going to continue to move on.
Thank you. Patrick?
Parks and Recreation is not about paving roads. It's about preserving our open space and taking care of the beautiful natural environment
roads,
that
the
people
trails.
love in Orange County. It was a trail, but that's perfect for DPW.
It's right by your house.
They should be working together on it. They should be working together on it.
I'd ask that we abide by the guidelines. Please.
That's all I have to say on that one.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Continuing with government and immigration. As you're aware, some local and national municipalities have come out as sanctuary jurisdictions for undocumented immigrants, many of whom provide a positive economic impact to their communities, particularly in our cities. As county executive, would you be for or against sanctuary jurisdictions, and why or why not? Patrick.
On this topic, I am against the federal government coming in and telling us how to run our county. Immigrants are a very important part of our history, our heritage, and our communities, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. I agree that we need reform. Like, if you're here illegally, that is an issue. We need to deal with it. But what I can't envision is a county where federal agents are running around our cities and raiding our farms, scooping up illegal immigrants and detaining them. We need to approach this problem with compassion. I'm looking very much forward to working with the county legislature and municipal leaders, again, to figure out what's right for the county. This isn't about federal government coming in telling us to run things their way. This is about us coming together to solve problems of our times with solutions that make sense.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Steve?
I started off saying that I'm proud son of two immigrant. My parents came here, and again, with the shirt off their back and with the American dream. And I think that dream still exists in this country, and I think that we need to continue to fight for it. I don't support the sanctuary cities. I don't like what the fighting going on in the federal government with targeting immigrants, but there needs to be a balance. And at the end of the day, this country has always stood as a welcoming beacon for people around the world, no matter where they're from. And at the end of the day, I believe fundamentally that we need to keep that light open and on, and I think we need to keep the door open, but we need to protect our country and have the right way of people coming in, just like my parents came in. Just like one of our employees in Audi, who's a new human rights commissioner, her family came here with nothing on their back, with a dream to try to make a difference. Now she's running our human rights department. Her brother served in Afghanistan to become a citizen. So, and she's doing great things because she's an immigrant. I know another friend of mine from Chester who's an immigrant from the Middle East, and I know he's doing great things, and he's raising a wonderful family here in my community in Chester. And it goes on and on and on, and that's what makes this country a great and stronger place. And I'll say one last thing. Annie Rabbit's here. One of the best jobs that she has as county clerk is to welcome in the naturalization ceremony all the new Americans. And it's probably the best and exciting thing that the sheriff, the DA, and I can attend. And we're going to keep that light open here in Orange County.
Thank you. Patrick, rebuttal?
Yeah, I also appreciate the fact that we are opening our arms, and naturalization ceremonies are wonderful. I agree with that. But I want to make it very clear for the record that one of the reasons I do not support our current federal administration, our current president, is the way that he talked about immigration and the way he stoked fear and hate amongst the public on this particular topic. It's an approach that lacks dignity, it lacks leadership. We need a commander-in-chief, and we also need a county executive to unite us, not divide us.
Thank you. Excuse me. Please, again, we'd ask that you abide by the guidelines that everyone has agreed upon. Steve.
Look, at the end of the day, I stand by what I said earlier, and I think Orange County is a great example of how we can help and welcome immigrants. We are just opened a school up in Newburgh where one of the main curriculums is English as a second language to help men and women that are immigrants get jobs, get job training. And we're going to continue to protect and build upon those things in Orange County. These are real things that matter and make an impact on people's lives. So whatever happens in Washington, we're used to all this paralysis. It's been going on for years.
Thank you.
Similar to Albany, but Orange County is a different place.
Continuing with the theme of government and immigration, close to 50% of Orange County residents spend 1/3 of their income on housing and often can't afford their monthly rent or mortgage payment. What do you propose to do to help manage these costs and increase the availability of affordable housing for our residents? Steve.
At the end of the day, the market has been driving a lot of these forces here in Orange County. The most important thing that we can do to make it affordable to families, whether it's the cost of the house itself, it's really the taxes. We are the state that has the biggest outward migration of people in the country. We lose congressional districts every census because of it. We need to do everything we can to reduce the costs, and that's the tax burden. I'm proud we've reduced the tax rate twice since I've been county executive, and at the same time, when you're bringing in more companies and in the private sector that are sharing the pay for the taxes, that are creating ratables, those are also relieving the burden on people in our community. It's the reason why Camp LaGuardia hasn't been fully developed yet. It's zoned commercial. It's zoned that way by the local municipal leaders of Chester and also in Blooming Grove. So when a new business comes there, that was off the tax rolls predominantly for the last few years, and it was also a home to a homeless shelter. Now you bring in a new company or maybe an industrial park or a commercial park, and with a mix of farming, you can have people paying taxes and generating ratables that are going to relieve the burden for every homeowner, whether it's young families or seniors or everywhere in between. So that's some of the things we can do. We can also work with our planning office to expedite housing projects that depend on cluster development and don't take up all the development spaces that we need and preserve our quality of life.
Thank you. Patrick.
So I'm not sure where you're going with the Camp LaGuardia thing. I think we discussed that earlier, but this is about affordable housing, particularly in our inner cities, and what we do to facilitate that. First of all, it comes down, it's not just taxes, that is a component, but it's about good jobs. It's about well-paying jobs that people can have to afford the rent. We have a huge population of people in Orange County that are working and living on wages that are below what it costs to live in Orange County. That's the very problem definition we're looking at. They also take taxis to work, right? That's expensive. They can't afford cars, but getting to work is impossible if there's no good public transportation. So I think there's a public transportation component to this as well. And on the topic of good jobs, look, this is not ride attendants at a theme park. This is not blackjack dealers in a casino. They're advertising this stuff on the radio, all these jobs that they need to fill, and I think they're having issues filling them. So these aren't the types of jobs that people are looking for so that they can afford the rent. We have an affordable housing issue. We need to figure out in the areas where it's needed most, in Port Jervis and Middletown and in Newburgh, come together with municipal leaders and figure out a solution, because right now it's not sustainable. People are leaving the county fast and they're coming in.
Thank you. Excuse me, please, I'd ask that you would adhere to the guidelines. Steve?
I think Orange County is offering a well-diverse portfolio of jobs out there. It's not just jobs at theme parks or jobs at the casino. That might be something that you hear on the radio, but we have some major employers in Orange County that are hiring people at very good wages, the medical field in particular, Crystal Run, Horizon, St. Luke's Hospital, Orange Regional, all hiring people and growing here in Orange County. Then you have the manufacturing field, like Pratt & Whitney, who's opened their third facility here in Orange County over the last few years. You have other tourism industries that are growing related to Stewart International Airport. These are all things that provide good jobs for futures and allow families to be able to afford to live here.
Patrick?
Yeah, look, I'm just going to double down on what I said because I don't think it's resonating. The data and the facts and the demographics and the flee out of the county proves it. We need better paying jobs to support people living in Orange County, and we need to do everything we can to come to the table, roll up our sleeves, figure out how to reduce the cost of living, get them access to the services they need, including transportation, and move towards the future.
Thank you. The next domain deals with the issue of economic development. What plans do you have for the $13 million controlled by the Orange County IDA so the funds can be used to stimulate the economy and advance job growth? And please be specific. Patrick.
Sure. So a couple things with this. First and foremost, our IDA does stand out as an outlier when you look across all the IDAs out there in regards to how much is in their bank account right now. I'm a firm believer that the incentives that we've been providing to big businesses who are coming in and who in many cases have access to capital markets are misdirected. We need to be doing more, again, for the inner cities, and we need to be doing more for our agricultural industry. There are not similar mechanisms that exist in agriculture that create the same types of provide the same types of economic incentives that the IDA does. So we need to come to the table and figure out how those dollars can be used effectively to help us confront the issues of our times. In the state comptroller report listed a whole host of issues based on their audit of the IDA, which showed improper controls, shady transactions dealing with the Millennium Company pipeline. It's very clear that the operations of the IDA need to be looked at very, very closely, and I'm curious to hear what Steve has to say about enforcing oversight and accountability in the IDA.
Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me again, Steve.
The IDA, the question was, the IDA sitting on $13 million, what would I do with that money what is my recommendation to the IDA? And I would say twofold. One, it should be used to help retain some of the companies that are here. And number two, it should be used to attract new companies to come here. And that means focusing more on the shovel-ready program. One great example of that is the Warwick Industrial Park under Mike Sweeten's leadership, the town supervisor there, where they took a former prison site, very similar to the Camp LaGuardia site, and create a shovel-ready commercial park ready for new companies to come in. That's a model that the county legislature in Orange County and I, whoever's the leader of this county in 2018 can move forward in that type of policy, which is basically creating a corporation to help run that and get it done. And they used IDA monies to do that. So the other thing, and some of the other recommendations I gave to the IDA to use that is to fund some of the Orange County funding corporations that used to be underneath the Orange County Chamber of Commerce, which helped small business across the county get started. It was basically startup and seed money. So you're not only helping the big companies, but you're helping every mom and pop store that's trying to start up. It's the most difficult time for a business the first few years, and that's some of the things that they can do with the $13 million that they're sitting on.
Thank you. Excuse me again, please. Patrick.
What I'm not clear on the answer there is the question about accountability and oversight. One of the jabs on the IDA as a result of the comptroller's audit was inflated job numbers. I couldn't agree more that the IDA and the incentives they provide are a critical tool for us to grow our economy and generate jobs here. But when it's operating like a loose cannon without the accountability and oversight from the county executive or whoever else is in charge over there, because I'm really not sure, then we're not doing the job the way it needs to be done.
Thank you. Steve?
See, this is where my opponent wasn't sure. A month ago, he said the county execs appoints the IDA members. We don't. The legislature does. But here's some of the things I have. One of the reasons why I'm county exec right now is because when I was supervisor in Chester, I took on the IDA when I thought they were giving out too many tax incentives. You can use the bully pulpit to fight them. And I think many people in this room remember 2 years ago when a Cadillac dealership was looking to get tax breaks and they were trying to call themselves a tourist destination. I've never in my life, maybe you guys in the audience agree with me, has never been taken with my family to go see a Cadillac dealership as a tourism destiny.
Thank you.
So these are the type of things that I have done.
Thank you. Again, in the theme of economic development, the portfolio of shovel-ready sites in Orange County is diminishing as more companies construct new facilities. As county executive, what investments would you have the county make to ensure that commercial shovel-ready sites are available for companies ready to do business in Orange County? Steve.
Well, first off, the Orange County Planning Office and the Orange County Office of Real Development has to be front and center. When you have major projects come here, those two offices, along with my office, often meet with the CEOs and the prospective companies that are coming here. We help them through the approval process, which New York is known for at least 3 to 5 years to get projects approved. So we're already starting with a disadvantage. By having those two offices combined with mine, we help shepherd incoming businesses through this red tape process, along with other agencies like the Orange County Partnership and even the Chamber of Commerce to help get these companies the quick answers they need to try to get them up and running and hiring people for business. That's one of the things we can do. The other thing that we can do is help working with some of our state resources, as we've had with other major companies that have come here in the last few years. McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, major Fortune 500 companies that have located here, have located with our cooperation working with the State Empire Development, as well as some other agencies that the state government operates under. In addition to that, we need to continue to reduce the tax burden. People look at it, they don't need to be in Orange County, they don't need to be in New York. We have to be very competitive. So when you have companies like Steris Pharmaceutical in Chester that just finished their last expansion here, they reach out to me and said, what can you do for us? We took them by the hand, we used everything we can to keep them here, and I'm glad to say they're hiring 40 or 50 new employees here in Chester.
Thank you. Patrick.
Investment in, again, the economic growth and jobs in Orange County, creating shovel-ready sites is very important. It should be a priority. It is government's job to provide access to the necessary infrastructure to businesses to come in and grow here and create jobs. What I'm a little concerned about in this regard, though, is I don't want to get too aggressive in terms of tagging every piece of open space in the county as a shovel-ready site. What we need to see is a comprehensive plan which clearly outlines which areas we're targeting for this type of development, which areas we're targeting for preservation. Our economic strategy right now, it doesn't exist, but it needs to include how we bring the IDA together with the Orange County Partnership, a cleaned up IDA together with the Orange County Partnership. And we also need to look at training our workforce for the types of jobs that we're looking to bring in. And this is all has to happen according to a vision and according to a strategy. Right now, the comprehensive plan that I mentioned was last written in 2002, and I think it was updated, although it's required to be updated every 5 years by general municipal law. It was last updated very minorly in 2010. So I'd like to see those pieces all come together, and that's part of what I'll do as county executive.
Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me, Steve.
Under my leadership, we have established a number of educational facilities. One of them we opened a few months ago in Newburgh that has well over 100 people that are already enrolled in their program to get them not only trained as English as a second language, but also into different industries that are looking for employees now, many of them in the medical community. At the same time, we're going to be opening a new facility now in Port Jervis that's been talked about for years, but actually is going to happen where now Port Jervis residents will now eventually be able to get an associate's degree there. They say everybody that graduates high school right now will have 5 different careers in their lifetime.
Thank you. Patrick.
So again, it's about coming together under a defined vision and a strategy for economic development and job growth in Orange County. Shovel-ready sites and promoting investment of that is a very important component. I plan to make it a priority. We need to revisit the comprehensive plan. We need to put an economic strategy and vision together so that we can work with the municipalities on creating the growth and jobs that we need.
Thank you. The next domain deals with the theme of arts and culture. With growing attractions like the Storm King Arts Center, nationally publicized local art walks, and the positive examples of Newburgh, Goshen, and Warwick of municipalities working with their creative communities, what do you see the role of county leadership being in support and encouragement of the arts? Patrick.
So this is a really important area, and I'm glad it was brought up. According to the National Conference for Arts Research, which scores counties across several dimensions in terms of their support for the arts, Orange County, of all the surrounding counties out there, scored the lowest in terms of government support, which is the money that's coming in from state and federal, the state and federal level. So as county executive, I will be a proponent of the arts. I will get up to Albany. I will be in Washington advocating for it if necessary, so that funding comes down, because it's easy to look at arts as something we push off to the side, but when you really look at the facts and the data and what the arts can do for us economically, it's a huge component in creating the types of places and spaces we want to work in and we want to live in. When we invest in the arts, it's not a sunk cost. It's actually shows return on investment. So we need to be knocking the table as hard as we can to make sure we're getting as much funding as possible from state and federal authorities. And we need to take that score, which makes us look bad across the entire region, and get us to the top.
Thank you. Steve?
I think it's twofold. Number one, we restructured the way that we give out Arts Council grants in Orange County. When we came in, it was just doled out to a nonprofit and gave it out. Now it's actually ranked with a scoring list, and we also opened the door to allow municipalities that have art projects to be able to qualify for county grants. The second thing, which I think is even more important, is to promote these destinations in tourism. Last night I was at the Supervisors and Mayors meeting in Cornwall, and the speaker was the mayor of Cornwall on the Hudson. He said this past weekend, and I think he's lived there his entire life, it was the busiest he's ever seen Storm King. We have reevaluated how we highlight and target tourism in Orange County. We've over doubled the amount of money that we put in it, and that's generated from the hotel-motel tax. So the more we promote these places, the more successful they are, and the more they're going to continue to grow and have spin-off impacts. At the end of the day, we've seen some real tangible results by seeing double-digit increases in the amount of returns in tourism since we started investing really seriously into them.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, again, I just want to reiterate that investment in the arts isn't just a sunk cost, and it's a very important component. The feedback I've gotten from talking with folks in the art community is that the support is not there, okay? This is a very important part, again, of making the places we want to live in, the places we want to work in, and I think we need to focus extra hard on, again, taking that score that's really quite low right now and moving it up the scale.
Thank you. Steve?
I think Orange County's heading in the right direction in how much we support, and we've done some other things. You talk about the movie industry, the sheriffs here. Rather than bloodlet these movie houses that come in to film movies and shows like The Blind Spot and other ones you see on mainstream TV, we've been able to charge them just for our costs. So it allows us to be more affordable for them to come back, and when they come here, they spend the money on our restaurants, our hotels. So these are all these different things that we've started over the last couple of years that makes us more attractive, and there's a global view on how we treat arts and tourism.
Thank you. Again, with the theme of arts and culture. Counties across the country, including Rockland County in New York, have a program in place whereby a percentage of large-scale project costs are used to support public arts and arts programming. Why or why wouldn't you support such a program for Orange County? And if not, what ideas do you have for county funding of the arts? Steve?
Look, we live in New York State where we are really strangling people to death. Most people, if they have a job, they're trying to work hard to stay and keep it. Others are trying to get out of New York State because of the tax culture and the cost of living here. So to add another cost in taxes or any type of development costs, I'd be against. However, we talked earlier about the $13 million that the IDA is on. There's no reason that the IDA can't require a certain amount of money that goes towards the arts or giving back for improvements. There's also caveats that the IDA can put in there to hiring local or hiring veterans. We put in a new policy to do that, but I think we can do more. And if there was any way to fund the arts better, I wouldn't create any new services or charges from anybody coming here. I would get it through the fees that they're already paying to the IDA, which, as we said, is $13 million. Is not a number to laugh at.
Thank you. Patrick?
I mean, Steve's gone back to the IDA argument of the size of the bank account that it's sitting on, which again is an outlier. Not a lot of IDAs sit on that much money, so this is money we should be reinvesting in our community. But the question about the arts and investment in the arts, I go back to what I said earlier, is this is an investment. When we promote local artists in our towns and our villages, you look at examples like, we always hold up how great the village of Warwick is and how great the town of village of Cornwall looks, and it's because they've invested in the arts, and it's not saying that we're done. We need to double down on our investment because these things again create the spaces and places we want to work in and we want to live in and we enjoy. So again, we can't see it as a sunk cost investment. It's an investment for our future that shows economic return.
Those two examples, Cornwall and Warwick, a lot of their art programs do get funding from the county arts funding already. So again, going back to the original question, I would not tag anybody with more fees or any type of cost to help generate towards the arts. I'd use some of our existing stock. And our IDA is sitting on a big amount of money because they've been very successful. So if you have that money sitting there idle, why not use some of it towards the arts rather than come up with some new fee or a new other way to try to help someone else, to force somebody else to pay it?
Thank you. Patrick?
I don't want to reiterate my points over and over again on the arts. Yeah, I'm very supportive of increased investments in the arts, and to Steve's point, we need to be very careful that we're not increasing the tax burden, but again, we need to go back to the economic benefit created as a result of investment in the arts.
Thank you. The next domain deals with the issue of quality of life, education, job training, and health. What has to be done at the county level, and how would you take the lead as county executive in helping to decrease the out-migration of our young people, specifically the 25 to 45-year-old population? Patrick.
So again, this is about creating an economic strategy and having a vision that the entire county can get around, that we can then integrate our workforce development strategy into. I'm very proud to come from a background in science, technology, engineering, and math, and I think that's the wave of the future. We need to look very carefully at what the jobs of the future in Orange County look like and what the types of jobs are that are going to invite our children and our grandchildren back to Orange County when they graduate. And then we need to get down to the lowest level in education and promote the training and education in STEM and in other areas. Healthcare is another area that's growing tremendously, and Orange County is very well positioned for. And we need to make sure we're reinforcing that at all levels. So again, when our students graduate from college or high school, they come back to an Orange County where they can earn a decent pay. And we need to work very closely with those that are entering careers that don't necessarily require a four-year degree, because that is a cost that they shouldn't have to bear if they're going out for jobs that don't require it. So we look at apprentice training programs, we look at partnering with Orange County Community College to make sure that our workforce is prepared for the jobs of the future, and it has to be, again, according to an economic strategy and a well-integrated workforce development plan.
Thank you. Steve.
Number one, to keep the 25 to 40-year-olds from outward migrating out of Orange County and New York State, the most important thing is jobs. It's the prime of their lives. That's where they're supposed to be working, talking about starting a family and being able to afford to live here. So I've had a perfect, I think I have a front-leaning approach to meeting with CEOs and companies, whether they're here or wanting to locate here, to welcome here. Again, I talked earlier about how difficult it is to do business in New York State. I think we've eased that burden on them. We have a great team. We work with the IDA and the partnership and our local municipalities. When you talk about a strategy for where companies go and what type of companies go in Orange County, it's a home rule state. So that's why you see Newburgh and Walk Hill and Chester and Woodbury have a lot of commercial growth. You're not going to see that commercial growth in Mount Hope or Cornwall. So that local zoning really predominantly dictates what type of development is going to go there. So what can we continue to do is we show prospective companies different areas around the county where they would fit best, and at the same time talk about their workforce. I mentioned earlier about how we actually opened a school in Newburgh where we're actually training people today. We're doing the same thing in Port Jervis. We opened a school in the Stewart International Airport that's going to help get employees for the casinos. We're also going to partner with Boeing to try to get people to be trained to work in aircraft maintenance and be part of that Norwegian team. So these are the type of things we're doing.
Thank you. Patrick?
I'm very proud to be endorsed by a pro-science national organization called 314 Action. It's named after Pi. And again, that reinforces my values of and commitment to lifelong learning and education in STEM-related fields. We need to be teaching our kids how to code, how to prevent cyber attacks, how to work in a new economy. Automation is threatening everything under the sun, regardless of what type of job you have, and our children need to be ready for those jobs of the future.
Thank you. Steve?
Besides job training and education, which I think we've covered, to me, one of the most important third-party validators to why I should be county executive again and why I'm leading in economic development is CEOs of companies. The CEO of Norwegian Airlines gave a quote supporting why they came here, me being a part of it. Steris Pharmaceuticals. These are the type of things that I take pride in because these are actually making a difference. They're actually bringing jobs here, and they're not left dealing with the structure of what New York State is. And we've been able to get these companies here, and I'm proud of it.
Thank you. Again, focusing on the domain of quality of life, education, job training, and health. An expansive and trained local workforce continues to be a challenge for the county and local organizations when it comes to attracting large companies to the area. What is the county's responsibility to train its population for these future jobs, and how can it carry out that responsibility? Steve.
Our job is to partner with educational institutions that we have here in Orange County. BOCES, Orange County Community College, Mount St. Mary when the time meets. And we're supposed to be working with the private sector as well to help match some of these careers with the education that they need to fill those jobs. We have a great record. I think we've had a more active dialogue with results than we've have in history. I meet on a regular basis with the leader of BOCES as well as our president of Orange County Community College to talk about different and emerging occupations out there for our residents. I started to say earlier, they say that a college graduate will have 5 different careers in their lifetime now after they graduate. So we need to constantly stay on top of that. So the educational institutions are the experts at these, as well as partnering with those employers that are looking for workers out right now. So my vision is to continue to marry them, work with them, have them together, and continue to have results from it. And that's putting people to work. That's the most important thing I can do, is to marry those education institutions, give the people the training, and get them the jobs that they need so they can support families here in Orange County.
Thank you. Patrick.
I just want to make one statement that the same problem we're talking about here in the 25 to 40-year-old demographic leaving the county, which is the demographic that is absolutely critical to economic growth and job development in Orange County, is leaving. And that's something that was a subject of the last campaign, and here we are 4 years later, and we're still looking at the same situation. What Orange County needs, again, is a strategy and a vision that workforce development plan rolls up under, and then support that with the funding to Orange County Community College and BOCES to measure it with the priority that we're placing in it. And Steve's up here talking a lot about his relationships with the CEOs. I don't think there's a CEO out there that wouldn't value coming to the table not to deal with a politician on the other side, but to deal with someone who's actually got real-world business experience on the other side of the table, so that when they're coming in to create jobs, we can make sure that it's the best job possible it's the best conditions possible for not just the company, but also for the residents of Orange County. And there's several examples across the county where that's just simply not happening. We're catering to the interests of these big businesses that are coming in because we don't have a county executive in Steve who's being an honest broker and asking the right questions about what the impact of these developments are in Orange County.
Excuse me. Again, if we can abide by the guidelines that we've all agreed upon. Steve.
Look, at the end of the day, Patrick can sit here and accuse and complain and make all sorts of accusations, but at the end of the day, I'm putting people to work, Patrick. You should come see the Orange County Jobs Office where we have people training people to get to work. You should see those manufacturers.
Again.
You go to Steris Pharmaceutical where people are happy to have a job, where they're employing one of my fire chiefs in Chester. These are the type of things that impact places. And you look at Crystal Run, who's hiring people, and St. Luke's that's hiring people. These are real jobs. They're hiring people between 25 and 40, and we're training them here in Orange County.
Thank you. Yeah. Patrick?
Steve, you campaigned on creating 1,000 jobs in 1,000 days. Your estimate was grossly low, which shows a complete lack of understanding of how the economy works. Our economy was, especially at the county level, was impacted just as bad as anyone else in the financial crisis. And you're up here like a rooster taking credit for the sunrise when you take credit for all these things that are coming in. And I'm not saying I'm not going to promote business and attract investment to the area, but again, it's about having a county executive at the table who's asking the right questions, and he's an honest broker in these relationships.
Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me again, if you would abide by the guidelines. And continuing with the theme of quality of life, education, job training, and health. As county executive, what are the top 3 community development and/or infrastructure investments you feel are necessary to help spur good planning and economic growth for the next 20 years? Patrick.
First and foremost, top priority is investing in figuring out a solution to the opioid epidemic that is tearing our families and our communities apart. Full stop. 100% top priority. Steve and I got into a discussion about this morning at the Times-Herald-Record editorial board, and I was absolutely disgusted by the way he talked about the families and individuals who are dealing with some very real issues in terms of their addiction, their disease. This is an issue that we can't jail our way out of. We need to focus on mental health treatment, access to inpatient services, treatment and rehabilitation so that we don't become known, and our stats are not great on this. Hundreds of people, I think the stat is below 200, have died over the past 4 years as a result of this here in Orange County, and we don't rank great according to the state statistics from a county perspective. We can't be known as the county when we're creating all these jobs and we're trying to bring our young children back in and send them to good public schools. We can't be known as the county that you need to stay away from because the opioid epidemic has got a grip on it.
Thank you.
I've got a couple more seconds left. The other piece of this, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is transportation. We need to make sure that our residents can get to school and they can get to work. We need to invest in that as a priority as well.
Thank you. Steve?
The question was, what 3 things would we do to improve our community welcome for community development? And the reason we'll talk about opioids later. My only disagreement with Patrick on opioids earlier was that he wanted to turn Camp LaGuardia, former homeless shelter, into a opioid treatment center, which both the supervisor-elect in Blooming Grove was floored by, and so was Chester, the town supervisors. You need to work with these communities, not force your ideas on them. So let's talk about my 3 ideas for community development. Number 1 is to have park facilities that you can attract families to. We've continued to build upon park services, not only the existing things like Sally's Dream, which it's now accommodating to people with disabilities, but our Heritage Trail, which is one of our busiest attractions, not only for people that live here, but for people visiting here. So we expanded 3 miles into Harriman. I said we're moving it through the rest of Goshen and into Middletown and into Walk Hill, and we're going to continue to build upon parks, working with groups like the Orange County Land Trust. The other 2 things we need to do is infrastructure. So one of them is bridges. We have 151 bridges. We were fixing 1 a year before I took office. Now we're doing over 2 or 3 a year, and we're fixing bridges that have been out for 4 or 5 years. You bring people to look at this county, they want to live here, they see bridges out for 4 or 5 years, they wonder what's going on. The third thing I would do is, and what we are doing, is opening up water resources like the Indigo that have been talked about for 30 or 40 years, but are actually happening right now.
Thank you. Patrick?
I want to talk about something that hasn't come up that should have come up, and that is the Newburgh water crisis. It's an absolute shame that our residents in the city of Newburgh have to question the quality of water that's coming out of their faucets, and that needs to be the utmost priority of what we're doing. And Steve, you can't get up here and say that parks are a priority, again, if you haven't appointed a commissioner for Parks and Recreation and DPW's paving trails. You can't say it's a priority.
Again, if you would hold your applause. Steve?
You build parks with engineers, Patrick. Maybe we'll teach you that one day, and that's why we had our PE guy doing it.
Again.
So, and here, at the end of the day, the water crisis in Newburgh, Orange County, the state, and the federal government have been on board with this from day one. It's a lot different than what you see in Flint or Hoosick Falls. Our 3 priorities were to get people clean water, number 2, fix their resources that were destroyed, and then give them a permanent source of clean water. So you can talk about it. I guess it's a good talking point, but we've been on it with the state and federal government.
Again, with the theme of quality of life, education, job training, and health. Besides removing drugs from the streets, what kinds of programs would you propose to prevent people from becoming addicted to opioids, and how would these programs address the risk factors for addiction? Steve?
So we tackle the opioid crisis in Orange County. We look at it as a 3-pronged attack. One is enforcement, one is treatment, but the other one is education. And not only are we trying to educate families and youth, and we're trying to educate providers. on treatment, on avoidance of treatment. We had a Corey Waller, which is one of the national recognized experts on fighting opioid abuse, here last week, educating our nonprofit partners, as well as our mental health workers that work for the county, as well as healthcare providers in Orange County. This is the third year we've done it, and it's been so successful that other counties, including Sullivan County, have sent their representatives down here to make an impact. Look, one person that dies from an opioid death is too much, but we can continue to build on it. The other thing in education is to train people with Narcan. It's revived dozens and dozens of people in our county. Myself, my office trained on it. We offer free training to the public, so they're able to make a difference and be educated on the reversal of the impacts of overdoses. The last thing I'll say is, look, we joined a class action suit with other counties to fight the pharmaceutical companies, which has been the origin. They say well over a majority of the people that are addicted to heroin today have gotten it on the pathway from being diagnosed by their doctors for pain medications. And what we're trying to do with that lawsuit is to change that culture of overprescribing.
Thank you. Patrick.
We need to focus to combat this on several things. Education at all levels, age-appropriate education that tells kids about the dangers and usage and how to avoid getting wrapped up in the opioid epidemic. The other issue that we have is that there's this mental health stigma that our society has. I mentioned a little bit earlier with my social media responses. We need to figure out a way to break through that, because right now we have people that are struggling immensely and are in a lot of pain that will not seek the treatment that they need. And as Steve said, every individual who suffers from this and we lose is a failure. It's an absolute failure. We need to invest heavily in treatment. We need to make sure that we have inpatient services, that we have enough beds, because the stats show the longer you're in treatment, the less likely you are to go out and relapse, okay? And this is something that I don't believe the private sector is going to come to our rescue on. And I know you're beating me up on this Camp LaGuardia thing, but I firmly believe this is a county resource. It's not given any benefit to the taxpayers right now. We need to use it to solve the problems of our times, and that is creating a state-of-the-art treatment facility to address this opioid epidemic head on.
Thank you. Excuse me, Steve.
So we're continuing to grow the amount of available beds and opportunities we have. We just increased the beds by 25% with one of their facilities. But I said earlier today, we are busing 111 people a week to Newburgh to get treated. I believe that we should have a treatment center located where the need is, not just plop it in the middle of nowhere. So going back to the question was about education. What can we do education-wise? The sheriff, the district attorney, myself, Darcy Miller, the Commissioner of Mental Health and Social Services, as well as ADAC, for the last couple of weeks have been going out and giving educational lectures on how we can educate parents to pick up opioids and what they can do to protect their families. These are the type of educational opportunities that actually make a difference.
At this point, Patrick.
There's been a lot of talk over the past 4 years about how we're doing this, yet the facts, and I don't know where you get that 25% number is, that's not what I'm getting from professionals who are helping Orange County deal with this issue. This is a lot of talk, this is not a lot of action, and I don't know where the priority is. When you talk about putting people on buses, yeah, we need to get them transportation, but do you really think someone struggling with this is going to hop on a bus to get to Newburgh for treatment? The answer is no, they're not going to do that.
They're doing it today. 111 of them, you should meet them, and then you can know.
Then there's probably more out there that are suffering that are not seeking the treatment because they are
So
scared
we'll have
to
more
do it.
facilities.
Thank you. The next domain deals with the issue of open space, agriculture, and land use. There is increasing awareness that our freshwater resources are limited and need to be protected both in terms of quality and quantity. This water challenge affects not only our residents and businesses, but also our municipal and county decision makers. At the county level, what should be done to increase the protection of our watersheds and water resources? Patrick.
This again goes back to the idea of the comprehensive plan, making sure that everything is laid out so that we don't risk the quality of our water supply with development that comes in and doesn't abide by the processes we have, and the procedures we have in place. CPV is a perfect example of a project that Steve bought into right away, despite the impact on public health and safety. And the data and the facts have become clear on this. Not just the methane emissions that are a huge contributor to the issue of climate change, but the impact and the pollution on our water. So we need to be very smart about what types of businesses we're attracting, the types of development, and we have processes for a reason. We have secret processes for a reason, so that we pay taxes to New York State. They have regulation. We abide by the regulation, because those things protect us from extractive big business development that could care less about the water that you're drinking or the quality of the air that you're breathing. And yes, sometimes it can be a little burdensome, but I think the benefit to the public health and safety far outweighs any delays in getting your next big project built, which is an eyesore and shouldn't belong in the county in the first place.
Thank you. All right, at this point, we will continue to abide by the guidelines that we have all agreed upon. Steve.
So the question was, how can we protect our water resources in the county? Our Orange County Planning Office has done a phenomenal job identifying the pockets around the county that are sources for not only current but future water resources. Most of the municipalities are very cognizant of them and are very diligent when new projects come in. But at the same time, the county has in the past earmarked parcels of land that are set aside for future water use. The Indigo property here in Middletown is a famous case that's been bought in the 80s. We're now being able to utilize that water. The same thing with the Dwark Hill out in Crawford. But you talk about a big issue like CPV. I apologize, Pat, but you're misleading the people here. The people that can really make a difference with CPV, I sympathize with the neighbors of CPV. And we're the only ones that have actually been included in a lawsuit to do something. But your buddies in state and federal government, including Scoofus, who took money, said he'll introduce a law to stop them next year. FERC and the DEC are the big regulatory agencies that should be leading the way in looking to make sure that these people are protected. But the federal officials, what are they doing for you? What is your congressman doing for you? Is he on the side of this with you, Patrick? This is the same example of what happened last year when they promised to keep the Cornwall Hospital open. In November, they said they'd keep it open, and guess what happened? The same guys that are backing you up on this, Pat, closed it this past January. They used it to get elected. Every day that you talk about this and protest, the plant gets built.
At this point, I need to go back to Patrick.
We're not looking to federal agencies like FERC to lead the way on protecting the health and safety. They shouldn't be telling the state, a DEC, who does have our best interests in mind in terms of denying the pipeline, they shouldn't be telling them what to do. I reject that outright. I talked in the beginning here about progress, not just growth for growth's sake. When you're bringing in development in areas like Goshen, where there are documented historic water issues, that is not progress. It's just not progress. It's not sustainable.
Excuse me. Please, continue.
I believe that was the 30-second.
Okay, sorry.
Was that right?
He's at, I don't know.
That's good. That's good. Steve.
Look, again, I'll just reiterate what the county is. The question was, what are we doing to protect our water resources? And the most important thing we can do is identify them, protect them when developers are coming in there. And I think you've seen that all over the place. In Chester, I remember where we were with Chester Golf was sitting on one of the biggest aquifers in the county. It was earmarked. Development was pushed all around it to make sure it was protected. And thankfully, the Open Space Institute, as well as Orange County Land Trust, came in and protected that land forever. So that's the things that we can do to really have an impact and preserve water resources for the future.
Continuing with the theme of open space, agriculture, and land use. Although local governments in Orange County are able to protect or restrict land from development through regulatory land use controls, these protections are not permanent and are subject to future policy changes. What county-wide or multi-town initiatives, including bond issuances and/or real estate transfer taxes, would you support to help fund open space acquisitions? Steve.
Look, at the end of the day, I think, the only Republican that sat on the board of directors for the Orange County Land Trust, the leading group in Orange County that preserves open space. I am not in favor of taxing residents at all because they're already taxed enough. And I'm going to go back to that and go back to it because it's one of my fundamental values. We pay enough in taxes here. I think that you have to partner with groups. We've been very successful. You see what's going on in towns like Walk Hill, Montgomery, where they were able to preserve with PDR, Purchase of Development Rights, which I do support, but at the same time partnering with groups like the Open Space Institute, which has a lot of money. We preserved a ton of land in Chester. We've just preserved a bunch of parcels along the Heritage Trail in Blooming Grove that are going to be used for the public. These are all good initiatives, and they're not done by strangling the taxpayers and the families of Orange County who already are taxed and burdened enough. So we have a great relationship with the Open Space Institute. My friend Lou Heimbach, the former county executive, who's in the room, the first thing he did when I got elected county executive was bring those representatives into my room and in my office, and we've had a great relationship ever since. Again, as well as with Jim DeLawn, the executive director of the Orange County Land Trust. We have a lot of projects that we're working on together, and this is something that the municipalities like Woodbury, Monroe, I've mentioned this to the new supervisor coming in, Tony Cardone, as well as Blooming Grove, haven't taken advantage of, but I think they would be ripe to have to utilize to preserve some of this open space for the public's use.
Thank you. Patrick?
So there's a lot of name dropping, a lot of talk of organizations that are doing a lot of really great work, and I come back to the idea of if that's the case, why haven't we appointed a Commissioner of Parks and Recreation to help define the strategy and execute this for the county? Over the past 24 years, the Orange County Land Trust has preserved, on average, 240 acres of land a year. That's really impressive. Preserving this land, the scenic byways, and environmentally sensitive areas really improve the quality of life for all of our residents. We have to do what we can to continue to protect natural and agricultural heritage of the county, and I'm looking forward to working very closely with a new Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, the Orange County Land Trust, organizations like Scenic Hudson. There are several out there. You've listed the names. I'm sure some of them will come and be our commissioner because this is such an important part of leading the county forward into the future. This is one of the things that does attract people back up to Orange County, our open spaces. When we talk about 25 to 40-year-olds leaving, they're going to start coming in because we're protecting our natural environment. If it's valuable now, can you imagine how valuable it will be in 100 years if we protect it the way we need to?
Thank you. Steve?
So the protection of open space is not a job for the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. It's more for planning. If you look at every successful grant that we've received for PDR or OES, it's all come through the Orange County Planning Office. That is their purview. They write the applications, we write the support letters, we work with them, we write grants. It's not the Park and Recreation Commissioner. Park and Recreation is to make the park facilities that we have are mowed, they're operational. So there's a real confusion on what the real issue there and how to do it. We've been successful in Orange County, and we're one of the models. Other counties are doing it, including Ulster, based on our model.
Thank you. We're doing great, aren't we? We really are. Congratulations to both of you. You're doing great. Okay. As we move on now to the continuation of the open space and agricultural and land use, the question is, Orange County farmers continue to face difficult challenges due to land competition and a growing demand for developable land. Farms have been and continue to be an integral part of the Orange County's history, its future, and its quality of life. What would some of your initiatives be as county executive in the area of farmland protection in Orange County? Patrick.
We need to come together. First of all, this is another area where the county doesn't have a commissioner. There's no one at the county level representing the interests of our agricultural community, and I think that needs to change. It needs to change very quickly. A lot of talk about supporting agriculture came out of Steve's campaign when he last ran. I think the results are lacking. Our farmers are still struggling with things like the flooding of the Wallkill River, their dependence on migrant labor, which again is something that's under threat as a result of the current presidential administration. They were already understaffed before this Immigration Customs Enforcement crackdown, and when the farmers don't have enough workers to harvest their fields, that's basically them leaving money on the table. That's their livelihood that they're not taking complete advantage of, and I think that's an absolute shame. I mentioned it earlier that we need to have a mechanism that takes incentives, similar to the IDA, that provides incentives to the agriculture industry to build and concentrate on economic initiatives and promote coordination and collaboration. We need more production, we need more distribution. I think the farmers markets are great, but we have to realize that food coming out of our agricultural industry in Orange County feeds 70% of the people on the East Coast. So this isn't about just selling to farmers markets. We need to do everything we can to make sure the farmers have what they need to harvest their fields and get their products to market as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Thank you. Steve?
The biggest enemy to farmers in our county and probably across the country is taxes and regulation. So first and foremost, I have to keep the cost of taxes on a county level as affordable as possible. The second thing, you talk about flooding on the Walk Hill River, which has plagued the farmers there for decades. We're actually took money that's been sitting on the shelf, and they're actually utilizing it now and creating these benching projects to be able to address potential floods that come down in the future. So we're actually doing these things right now. I've been touring on it a month ago with a couple of farmers. It's actually making a difference in doing it. The third thing we can do is we solicited and received grants to promote our farmers markets. Our farmers markets are doing a great job. They're growing. And these are some of the phenomenal things that we have to offer in Orange County. The fourth thing is we need to continue to give them support with the PDR program. It's been very successful to save some of the few dairy farmers that we have left, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to prioritize as we go forward in the county to make sure that they can be able to afford keep their farms. The biggest problem they have is the cost. So I'm not going to hire a commissioner for everything that I'm supposed to do or the county's supposed to do. We're actually getting it done right now, and we're going to continue to work with our farmers to get it.
Thank you. Patrick?
So again, this comes down to an issue of where your priorities are as the leader of the county government. And I don't look at people leading strategy for our agricultural industry as a cost. It's a very valuable thing. Their interests need to be heard and represented at the county level. It's such an important component of the natural history and the economy of Orange County, and we can't continue to ignore our farmers. And those Walk Hill River flood benches are highly ineffective. They're still struggling with flooding issues as often as the weather events occur.
Steve?
We have a great ambassador or director of our relations with farmers right now. It's a guy named Paul Ruskevich, who is actually a grower who's on the county legislature, has our county legislature in my ear on the issues that are pressing. And at the same time, we are the largest contributor to Cornell Cooperative Extension out of any county in New York State. These are resources that every farmer has for any type of expertise, for any type of issue they have, whether it's livestock or growers. So I'm proud of that, and I've kept that funding, and I think we're going to increase it a little bit more.
Thank you. Continuing with the theme of open space, agriculture, and land use, the county has extensive property holdings, including an expansive park system. Given the importance of recreation in a county's quality of life, what is your vision for the future of the county's parkland system? Steve?
I think that it's a twofold thing. We need to change some of our aging facilities to make them more accommodating to people with disabilities. I mentioned earlier about Sally's Dream, which is a beautiful park for kids that parents go to. My wife and I used to bring our kids there when they were younger. When we only had 2 kids, now we're a little outnumbered. But what we've done in the last year was not only remodel that park, but make it accommodating to people on wheelchairs and different disabilities. So that's one thing. We need to make it more accommodating and welcome to everybody in our community. The second thing we do is we need to continue to grow them. As the county continues to grow, we need to create pocket parks. And one of the things that I proposed was not only having access to the Heritage Trail, which is a major issue now, making new parking and things like that, but to have parking as well as little playgrounds near there. So families can go there, they can park and use the trail, or they can park and use a playground. So these are the type of things that we're going to be continuing to do and grow as we continue to expand our park system. And then you have these marriages with groups like we mentioned earlier, the Orange County Land Trust and the Open Space Institute, where we open new hiking trails in Cornwall in the Storm King area. These are the type of things that we need to continue to do and foster. We've done a lot since in the last 4 years. It's going to continue to grow, and I have no problem, and I think the legislature has backed me up every time investing more money in these projects.
Thank you. Patrick?
I can't reemphasize the importance of filling the vacant role of the
waiting
Parks
for
and
that.
Recreation Commissioner. No, I mean, it's serious. There was no succession plan. There was no transition. And over the past several years, there was a lot of talk about a huge initiative out in the Port Jervis area with the Delaware River whitewater rafting. This was a project that was intended to bring in lots of jobs, to be a great destination for tourists who do come to Orange County, and that stalled, I'm not sure how, by bureaucratic processes. Senator Schumer was down in 2015 promoting this, actually warning the county not to let it stall or die, and I haven't heard anything about that in the past 2 years. I'm not sure where that sits, and that's an area of the county that is in desperate need of economic development, draw from tourism, and revitalization. Port Jervis is disadvantaged in so many ways because they're so close to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, where it's cheaper to do business right over the border, and they're suffering from that. Yet we have issues where there's a real good proposal put on the table that protects our natural resources, attracts people to the county, and I'm not even sure where it sits right now.
Thank you. Steve?
So again, the question was, how do we expand the park system going forward? Again, I said that we need to make the existing facilities more accommodating to people with disabilities, at the same time continue to grow as our county grows. The Port Jervis water project was actually stopped by a federal investigation on the mussels, so maybe you can ask some of the federal officials that, from your party, if they can help expedite those permits so they can get that built in Port Jervis. But they also are looking for a lot of investment from the private sector, but I do think it's a worthwhile project, but it's something that's a little bit outside of the county's hands. We've supported the mayor there locally on it to get it where it is now, and we'll continue to do that once those federal permits get approved.
Patrick?
I don't have any trust or faith that these federal permits will be approved, but although that they are reducing the standards, perhaps it's a possibility. But we need to figure out ways to revitalize our city of Port Jervis, and this is it goes hand in hand with increased recreation opportunities in the county. I'm not going to sit here and take no for an answer. It's a project that has leadership support, and we need to do what we can to make it happen.
Thank you. In continuing with the spirit of dignity, we have finished the formal questions, and now we move to the closing statements. Each candidate has provided 2 minutes for a closing statement. Again, in order to promote the sense of dignity, the sponsors of the debate have asked that you hold your applause until both candidates have provided their closing statement. I do believe that it's Patrick that
Go last.
goes last, so Steve.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Patrick, thank you for, we've had a lot of fun this morning and this evening, and it's not easy to stand up here and debate the issues and put yourself out there, so I thank you for that. I judge whether you hire a politician is not electing them, you're hiring them. Would you hire them for a job? When I go by my record of now almost 4 years of service, I say, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? When we were 4 years ago, when I ran, the government center was closed with no end in sight. When I ran 4 years ago, the budget was not balanced and the revenues were overinflated. The budget is balanced now. And when you talk about record high unemployment, I've taken a front line, forward-leaning approach, meeting with these companies to try to convince them to come here and stay. At the same time, we've improved a lot of our recreation. We talked about the Heritage Trail. We've talked about our parks. We've talked about the infrastructure, the bridges that have been left dormant for years and years. But there's a lot of other things that are happening. Stewart International is truly international now. Norwegian Airlines is bringing thousands of people there. The CEO of that company has credited me as being one of the partners to welcome them here. But there's more than that. Our credit rating was plummeting when I was county executive. But when I took over as county executive. And this is what Moody said, because I paraphrased it this morning, and I wanted my opponent to hear this himself. The stable outlook reflects the stabilizations of finances by the new management and is expecting to return surplus to the operations. We've doubled the surplus since I took office. We are in a strong financial situation. The New York State Comptroller, who's going to headline one of the Democratic fundraisers in the next week, credited us and actually took us off the fiscal stress list. These are real, tangible barometers that every household and every business in Orange County can feel. That's the job of the county executive. We can talk about the things going on in Washington. We can talk about the things that aren't happening in Albany. But the job of the county executive is to get things done, and we're doing that here. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, In support of the theme of dignity, Patrick.
Thanks for everyone for joining us, Dr. Force for moderating, and Steve for agreeing to do this. It was a long day, but I'm really excited to be here. I think this was a great discussion, and for those of you who didn't get a chance to see our editorial board, it's online. Take a look at that, because there are some topics we discussed this morning where I think the contrast between how Steve will lead the country forward, the county forward, and how I will lead the county forward couldn't be more stark. Being here to share my views, discuss with Steve, added some context to the issues I'm running on. That's sustainable economic progress, not growth for growth's sake. Creating jobs that pay well so our kids can come back to something in Orange County. Cleaning up the government. We didn't talk about it tonight, but this pay-to-play culture that exists in Orange County needs to go. It needs to go now. We have to protect the environment, and we talked a lot about it tonight. We need to fight the opioid epidemic with everything we got, with everything we absolutely have. It's clear that the experiences that I bring to the table from West Point, serving and leading soldiers in war, Wharton Business School, and the real-world business experience that I bring to the table prepare me to lead the county into the future. Orange County is a great county. We shouldn't be selling ourselves short, or worse, becoming complacent. I hear a lot of things that Steve's taking credit for, which is, things are fine. Why change what we're doing? I'm about leading this county into the future, and I'll leave you guys with a final thought. When I get to work refining my vision and strategy for Orange County, and roll up my sleeves and sit down with the leaders who are going to help me do this, I hope that the table in the executive office is large. Because in my boardroom, everyone gets a seat at the table.
Thank you. Excuse me 1 second. Thank you. On behalf of, excuse me 1 second, excuse me. On behalf of the Orange County Citizens Foundation and its strategic partners, we really want to thank both of you for an outstanding exchange. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.